Hey, Tanille.
Hello.
Starting off in the classic Sandy and Nora way. Thank you so much for being here. And I mean, the first question is like the most obvious question. It's the hopefully easiest question. What is the 30 or 90-second pitch for why people should support you as the NDP leader?
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming from a completely different perspective of the other leadership candidates. I'm from a different generation and just bringing a really new view into the NDP and hopefully bringing us into a new era. I mean, I know you know this, I come from a student organizing background, like we've been in this social justice world for years and years and years. And I want to see us come into, the 21st century. I want to see us use technology in a way to really help us mobilize, especially online. And it would be so excited to be able to do that work across the country for the NDP.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you started off by talking about the student movement because we do know each other from the student movement. We were in totally different locations. You were on the West Coast. I was in the belly of the beast in Toronto. But it's kind of bizarre to me, to be honest, that you're the only person that comes from the student movement of the leadership candidates, unless there's someone whose background I'm not aware of. What about the student movement do you think has prepared you to take on a role as big as the leader of the NDP?
Yeah, I flash back to this time when we were in the sub, so the student union building at UVic, right after a meeting, and it was a really heated meeting, and I think it was even 1 o'clock in the morning because we debated like crazy in student politics. And I was having a conversation with a fellow student elected, and I was like, you know what? Like, just chill out. This is not real life. This is student politics. We're students trying to, change our on campus little microcosm of a world. And I've played that back to myself so many times because now that I've been in municipal politics, now that I've ran federally for the NDP, I'm like, wow, it is exactly the same as student politics. I'm like, this is crazy. So, Kelsey Hannon, if you're out there, I'm so sorry, man, that that I said that because it is such great practice. It prepares you so well. I mean, you know this, like worked long, hard days. You did not leave those meeting spaces for sometimes like 12 hours. Like it's just crazy. So I truly feel that student politics really roots our baby politicians super well. I mean, like yourself, and numerous other people that were in the student movement at that same time in those same couple generations as ourselves, they're still in politics. They're either running for provincial seats, territorial seats, federal leadership. They're working in parliament. They're working in the House of Commons. They're doing shows like yourselves. Like we are the next generation of politicians and they grow in the student movement. So I think it's just a vital section of folks that we're not engaging enough as the NDP. And I really want to change that.
Yeah, and I mean, on the other hand, a lot of the leadership of the NDP comes from the same tradition as well, and I think that that's so fascinating because, there's certainly the paradigm of being a student radical, and of course, not everybody that goes to the student movement is a student radical, and you can see how people find those places, and so. I mean, like the elephant in the room when we're talking about the NDP, some of it comes from the very same people that we worked with or fought alongside, sometimes fought against. They are in charge of the NDP right now. And it's clear that everybody wants change. Avi Lewis is the front running candidate, and he is like saying, I want change. But all of the candidates seem like they want some kind of change, obviously. And so for you, how do you envision changing the NDP to make sure that it is not only relevant, but also that it is unapologetically progressive?
Yeah, I mean, we have to live and breathe democracy within our party and outside of it. And within our party, we need to do some decentralization. We've gotten too hubbed into what we call the center of the universe over in Ontario. We need to decentralize that process and really embed ourselves back out into our electoral areas, into our riding associations. These are the folks that find the beautiful humans that are going to run for the NDP in the next election. They're the ones that champion those campaigns. They fundraise like crazy. They are like the lifeblood of the party, but we don't really respect that, in my opinion. I don't feel like we allow those voices to really show up in a strong, influential way in our party. And we have to change that. We have to lean harder into our riding associations and help them mobilize and organize on the ground better. The money has to flow that way as well. So right down to the the rebates that you get if you win 10% of the vote from Elections Canada, federal government shoots over a grant basically saying, good job, here's some money. That money very commonly just all gets sucked up by the central party. And that can't happen. The definition of a movement is that it keeps going. And to keep a movement going, you have to feed that movement. And if we're centralizing all the money in the central party, we can't keep that movement going in the riding associations. So we have to make some fundamental changes to ensure that we can not only build a bigger movement, but we can actually keep it going every day, not just election day.
Hmm. Can you talk a bit more about those changes? So, decentralization, what does that look like? What does it look like to empower the riding associations? And then how does that all feed into a party that is more viable at the federal level?
Yeah, so we've had a hard time allowing voices to show up at our executive table. So we have commissions, right? Like we have an Indigenous commission, we have a disabilities commission, we have these leaders in these spaces. But from what I've heard, sitting at the executive table, those voices aren't really taken seriously. I mean, as a member of the Indigenous Commission, we submitted recommendations alongside numerous EDAs across this country saying, this is our max threshold limit for the cost of the leadership ballot. This is what we want to see as the highest price tag. This is where we're also looking at on the kind of the lower end of the spectrum. That was blown out of the water. The highest price tag that I knew of that any EDA was just submitting across the country was $75,000.
Lost you there for a sec. Remote of internet connections are not always equal across Canada, and I believe you're the only candidate. You're one of two candidates that lives in a region that we would consider not a major center. How are you bringing that perspective into the race to make sure that we're not just paying attention to urban Canadians, but people who live in lots of different kinds of regions all over Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super central to even how we're running the campaign. So we are dedicated to going to some of our rural communities and showing up in places that the party hasn't been in a long time, that the party maybe doesn't give a lot of attention to. These are some of our hardest ridings to win in the country, but people vote there. We have NDPers there. We have very dedicated, smart, amazing humans that want to see our party succeed. And so we've gone to places like Amherst in Nova Scotia. And we went out to Cape Breton, which was both an amazing experience and also totally heartbreaking. There hadn't been a leader or a leadership candidate in Cape Breton since Jack Layton. And that was just hard. That was hard to hear. It was really disheartening that that's a fact that they carried, and that that's the gap now is Jack to me. So we really are living and breathing, making sure that we're showing up for people in rural communities. We also do well in a lot of rural ridings across the country because blue shows up in rural ridings, and we do good against conservatives because there's a stark contrast between our two parties. We're very different, and we are the left of the conservatives, absolutely, and of the liberals. But we have to distinguish ourselves a lot better against the liberals than we have been historically. So that, and also championing in spaces as far as policy announcements, making sure that we're including those rural perspectives. We're going to have our agricultural and farming policy plank out soon. It's one that we've been very intentional with because agriculture is a huge industry in Canada and we don't talk about it. We're not going to get a lot of questions at debates about farmers, which is crazy because it's a huge industry and one that has actually been quite neglected by the country for a very, very, very long time. So we live and breathe it all day long. We have most of our volunteers are from rural ridings as well. So right down into like the roots of the campaign, we're making sure that we are not forgetting rural and that we're always going to be that voice.
Mm. Now, I've been talking to people all over Canada as well as I've been traveling, and you're definitely making an impact among of some of the people that I'm talking to. I'm hearing friends and comrades of mine, especially women, raising your name as being the person they're most excited about. But your campaign hasn't managed to punch through the noise of like I mean, frankly, you've got Avi Lewis's campaigns in the leadership, and I look at your resume and I know the work that you've done. You know, you're a social worker, you've been elected in various positions over the years. What do you think it is that's been so why is it so hard for your campaign to have kind of get past a level where you're maybe in the third or the fourth kind of position if we're looking at all the candidates?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting from ground zero. Like, I had arguably no advantages going into this whatsoever. I don't necessarily know people in power. I don't have a lot of wealthy friends that I can connect into. The last federal election was my first race federally. We did outstanding. We finished the highest non incumbent candidate in the country for the NDP. We did very, very, very well. We fundraised very, very, very well. But it's a hard place to start from. The rural candidate from the middle of nowhere on the opposite side of the country to where the machine is in Ontario. So even Tony had a little bit of a leverage point because he's run so many years in Ontario. So a part of that whole conversation on the other side of the country. So it's hard, and we've kind of been put in the corner by mainstream media. They don't want to talk to us. They're not interested in talking to us, and so I don't necessarily view that as like a give up point by any means. I view it as like, well, sorry, but I'm still here. Even though you didn't want to talk to me, even though you didn't put me on your show and you're not mentioning me in your articles and you're saying there's only 3 candidates. Hi. Still the the little rock in your shoe. And I think that that's impressive. I think it's impressive that we have been shut out for lack of better words, by mainstream media, but we're still here as a candidate. We've still managed to fundraise the money that we've need. We've still toured crazy places across the country, wicked schedules. Like, we're doing the work, and doing it on a really tight, thin budget. So I like to think we're quite impressive in that arena of doing a whole lot with very little. But that's also just the social worker in me. You don't get paid well. You're not given any resources or assets to work with, and you're meant to change the world and fight back against giant systems crushing vulnerable people. So this is just the world that I thrive in and that I love.
And that it presumably gives you the skills necessary to navigate these difficult positions of power.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting into hard conversations is what I've done my whole life. Like, this is where you're positioned as a social worker. You enter a room where arguably everybody hates you, and you have to work with the folks in that space to come to a mutual agreement on how you're going to move forward together. And that's politics in a nutshell. That's being able to have hard, challenging conversations, still enter them with curiosity and respect, and find a way to move forward together. And so I absolutely believe, I mean, we saw this in Alexa McDonough. A lot of people didn't necessarily like love Alexa, but she did some great work. She laid the groundwork that made a super strong base for Jack Layton to then come in on top of and take us to that next phase of the NDP, right? So we're in this growth phase, we're in this rebuild phase, and we have to bring in people that we haven't brought in before. And for me, that's the student movement. We need the student movement. And for me, that's our over 600 nations across the country. We don't have a strong government to government relationship with these nations. We don't show up and say, hey, where are you at? What are your top priorities? And how do you want us to show up as a partner in that for you? Before the last election, we ran an equity ballot box campaign, both provincially and federally, to make sure that every nation in my riding had a ballot box in their community. And we had some communities that had never had a ballot box in their community in the history of Canadian politics, which is disgusting. But we fixed it now, and we'll make sure that they have another one the next election, because people need to not only have like a geographical closeness and accessibility to their ballot box, it also has to be in a space that folks identify as safe. And if we're not doing that work, if we're not making sure those boxes are showing up in spaces that are safe for all Canadians, then we're not giving that opportunity to all Canadians to actually vote. So we need to champion that work across the country to make sure that people have voting easily accessible to them and in safe places.
One of the big tests of the NDP in the last number of years was the supply and confidence agreement, and I'm very curious to hear what you think or you thought about that agreement and what you may have done if you were elected and around the caucus table, especially given that a lot of times progressive rhetoric just flies right into a concrete wall when you're up against the compromises and the difficulties of bureaucracy that is not inherently left wing at all, even if it's in the NDP. So, what would you have done? What did you think of that agreement? What would you have changed, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, one big thing that I would have changed is trying to be transparent to your membership. None of us had any idea why we were holding on to that agreement for so freaking long, and we were so scrutinized for it. Like we that did a lot of damage to our party, holding on to that agreement for so long. And what wasn't disclosed to the membership, or even broader than that, was that the ink was not dry on the dental part of that agreement. And if we had let go and said, bye, see you later, we're now going to separate because we know there's an election coming and we need to differentiate ourselves, we wouldn't have had that big win. We wouldn't have got the healthcare, the dental, the diabetes coverage, the pharmacare. We wouldn't have gotten the whole package. But we didn't know that. All we knew was that people were attacking us for staying in this relationship for far too long, while also trying to criticize the government that we're staying in a relationship with, that we're kind of offering, we don't have confidence in, but then we're still staying in with them. So that all that didn't come to light until it was way too late. The election was pretty much cooked. And then there was that Toronto Star article with Jugmeat offering the ink was not dry. This is why I had to do what I did. I fell on the sword and I would do it again. And I was like, why didn't you offer that before the election was called? Why didn't you give us that information? Like, we would have been able to champion that narrative. Absolutely. Instead, we were just getting slammed over and over and over again. So I would have done transparency differently. To whatever legal form we could have done it, we should have been doing it, because that was something that was really, really, really hard to recover from. And although we won big and we got the biggest addition into healthcare coverage in a generation, people don't remember it like that. And we also haven't owned that win. Arguably, we kind of wrapped it up in a bow and gave it to the Liberals, and now they're like, thanks. And so we need to be better at educating our membership and the broader voter community through all sorts of platforms, whether it's podcasts like this, whether it's TikTok posts or Snapchat or getting on a Twitch or whatever it is. We need to make sure that people know what our successes are.
Yeah. Now, we started talking off about at the start of this about being in the student movement, and you and I are, I believe, the same generation, and it's kind of wild to me that we are considered young still, because like we're so not. And I'm in Quebec, where arguably the architects of the next government are all in their 30s and younger. Why do you think there's such a weird tension's maybe not the right word, because it's not like it's open tension or open warfare, but like, the lead candidate is closer to 60 than he is closer to 30. The oldest candidate, of course, is in his 70s. You're the youngest by probably a decade at least. I think you're probably 10 years younger than Rob Ashton. Like, how important is that generational renewal to this whole process?
I mean, I think it's vital, if you ask me. And I was just having this conversation with a young person last night. Actually, these two young people came up to me after our Victoria debate, and they were just like thanking me so much for being young, which is, such a graceful word to receive at 38, but for being young, for being a woman, for being Indigenous, and for taking up this space. I was like, well, you guys, I was like, I'm looking at you like you're going to be forming government any day. So like, get ready, because it's coming. We have a huge generational divide. It's basically us, like our generation, our era, and then there's a huge void. And I don't want to like call the NDP a business, but you have to look at it with generativity. Where are you training your next people to continue your movement? Where is that reach? Where are we doing the work? It's not just about selecting candidates for the next election. It's far before that, far, far, far before that. We want to invest in K-12 civics, because in BC, it's like not a thing unless you have this teacher that champions in politics and they want you to know the political environment that you live in. And I know a couple of those, and they're amazing humans, but we really need democracy built in from kindergarten to grade 12. And then after that, hopefully people know a little bit more about the political system that they're in. Maybe they're interested. And when folks are getting into post-secondary, we have to be engaging with those campus clubs. We have to be engaging, arguably, with the student unions. Those are microcosms of our government. They are governments. They're governments in their institutions. And I know we have our own like intergovernment challenges on post-secondary. Like, I sat at UVic Senate. That was an experience. If you want to feel completely tokenized, go sit on your university Senate. It's wild. we need to respect these spaces. We need to be in them. We need to listen to them and help build up those movements so that those folks see themselves as the next generation of government coming up. And like, let's get training them now.
Mm. Now, I am coming to you from Quebec, Quebec City to be specific. Do you think that the NDP has given up on Quebec?
I mean, I don't think so. The heat that I face because I am not fluent in French and I can barely speak French, I would say no. I would say the NDP is strongly behind our francophones and absolutely views Quebec as essential to this party, 100%. However, I believe criticism is healthy. I think it's where we grow. I think it's where we learn. And arguably, we're talking and acting like Quebec does mean everything to us. However, we have numerous MPs that are not fluent in French. And as an MP, you do get free French lessons that you can do while you're an MP. And I love that. I think that's amazing because I know I'm going to heavily rely on that free service. Thank you very much. But we're not walking our talk, right? And that is a big criticism of the leadership race. We're not walking our talk. The French debate was rough. Like that was rough. We need to set ourselves up for success in these spaces, not set ourselves up to just essentially be embarrassed, which is kind of what happened in Montreal. So yeah, our actions are not matching our words as much, but the passion and the care is there, absolutely. But we have to do better at matching it with those actions of actually increasing our fluency, especially once we're elected, really being intentional about taking those French lessons and how that's built into our work and giving our MPs permission to also take the time to take the lessons.
Yeah, I remember there was this moment during the last leadership race. I had Nikki Ashton at my house. She was staying with us and she was meeting people in Quebec City. And she looked out the window and was like, "Is that Charlie Angus?" And he had been like taking French lessons. He wasn't in town publicly. And I was like, "No, that's impossible. That can't be true." Oh, yeah, it totally is. So certainly
So
the desire.
cool.
Yeah, certainly the desire. She didn't run outside and say hi to him or anything like that. It was a bit more like, that's weird.
Yeah,
But, I've got
binoculars, right?
a little bit, yeah. But I've got a similar question for you. I mean, when it comes to Quebec, you are pretty much can't get further away from Quebec than you are, like physically. And, in this
Yeah.
country, BC is pretty far from Quebec. But I have the same question for Indigenous issues. Has the NDP given up on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that we've given up. I think, I mean, I'm kind of a living example, right? Like I had conversations with Rachel, our previous NDP MP. When she saw me move into municipal politics, she sought me out. And we started having conversations, and she wanted this mentorship relationship with me, and she wanted to encourage me to stay in politics. And that's what we need, right? We absolutely need that. But I do think there's a large space there that we're leaving. I went to the Assembly of First Nations gathering in September, their AGM, which was really great. I wanted a pulse on like, okay, what are you guys like pushing right now? So that I had that to bring along with me. And the only other person there was Leah, which is like, well, of course Leah's there. It was in Winnipeg. But why wasn't there a full NDP representation of support there? So at the Assembly of First Nations, they
Mm-hmm.
also break up into their provincial and territorial like tables. So they have entire rooms
Mm-hmm.
dedicated to the leaders that are from those provinces and territories. You can literally just ask to attend as a guest, sit in that room and offer your ears to those leaders, those elected leaders of their governments in that space, and they meet frequently. So there are carved out pathways already for us to engage with elected chiefs from across this country, and we're not activating those spaces. So we really need to look at the structure of how we engage and make sure that we're meeting nations where they're at and starting to do that work. I'm not about pushing memberships like crazy. I'm not about doing the work to earn a vote. Like if you develop the relationships and you build the trust and you demonstrate your commitment through action, the vote will come. You will have firmly demonstrated your commitment to that work and to that allyship and to that support in the House of Commons. The vote will come. So stop just pushing votes, stop pushing for memberships. There's so many people that absolutely would love to be a member, but they won't join because they're terrified of their employment. I mean, I have a lot of friends, obviously, in the not-for-profit sector. They're not going to join a political party because they're afraid of their name showing up on a list and then their funding getting cut. That is a real fear. Who am I to tell someone to join a party, anyways? But I know they're going to show up and vote because the relationship's there, the trust is there, and I know they're going to show up and vote. So there's a couple different games here, right? Like, yes, encourage memberships for sure, but they have to be free because they're inaccessible at the price tag we have them at, and it shouldn't be our whole agenda. Our whole agenda shouldn't be memberships. It should be engaging with the populations that we're trying to represent and earning their vote in that ballot box come the next election.
I have one final question before we get into rapid fire, fun, kind of
Sure.
less stressful. No, this isn't stressful at all. I think this is a lot of fun.
It's so fun. I'm so excited.
Well, and so this question, I mean, this is my biggest question to all of the candidates who have built a movement. Not all the candidates have built a movement. So I'm not asking this to everybody, but it does seem like you are building a movement. As I say, I've talked to people about you in Ontario, and I've seen buzz in Nova Scotia. And people online keep naming you when I'm talking about the leadership. If I'm being frustrated about it, they're seeing you as someone that really does represent what they believe the NDP could be or should be. So if you lose, what happens to this movement? What are your plans in the case that you don't become the leader with everything that you've built so far?
Yeah, so I've had this conversation, including with this very, very back to kind of Cape Breton. It was an amazing experience, but this the person that showed up, they were so excited to meet me and get into some, back and forth with me about military stuff. And like we went everywhere in Cape Breton as far as our conversation. Um, and they were like, if you don't win, you go next time. You go next time, you get in there. Like, I need you in this space. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, we'll look at it, when the next leadership race comes. If this one's not successful, we'll look at it. Like, but I want to tell you that like I'm committed in this space. So if you need to know if the belief in the party and the strength of the party and our future collectively, if you need to know that I'm in it, I'm in it. Message me on Facebook, message me on Instagram, Mastodon, whatever social media platform you communicate the best on that you want to use. Shoot me a note because I'm probably on it. But I'm staying in this. Like I'm anxiously awaiting our nomination race in North Island Powell River so that I can earn that candidacy again. Something that I want to also change as leader. We will be having nomination races 3 to 6 months after every election. We will no longer be in this void of no candidates for years on end. So that I can continue to do this work. Like I'm in it for my riding. Like I want to protect my riding and see my riding be successful and prosperous and for people to feel safe in it and just watch it thrive. And I want to be a part of that work. So they were so happy that I said that. And I've had that conversation with a few people across Canada, just give them that assurance that I'm not going anywhere. And I did the same thing in my riding after the election. People were not okay after the last election. And so I went on a little thank you. I'm still here. Like, don't give up on me. This isn't done yet. Just to give people that safety, that security, that confidence that they have a person. So yeah, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm stubborn. I'm so stubborn. So yeah, I'm here.
Right. Amazing. Okay. So here's some rapid fire questions. And I had to pick moments in time that worked for the generations. So some of these, the answer is going to be a little bit. So I am in Quebec City. I literally am facing one of the main streets where there was a showdown between the police and protesters in the Summit of the Americas protests in 2001. So where were you when the FTAA protests happened in Quebec City?
Oh my gosh, 2001. I was in high school.
Yeah.
I was in high school. I was a Timberline wolf at that time.
Amazing. Okay. This one, a little bit after that, February 15th, 2003 was the day that the world said no to war. There were hundreds of thousands of people that marched all over Canada. You probably still would have been in high school. Do you remember that day? Where were you?
I don't remember that day, but yes, was definitely still in high school. going to school full time and working. So I worked at Dairy Queen.
Okay. Where were you for Stephen Harper's apology to First Nations people in Canada?
I was in Campbell River, and that was a crazy day, and a lot of emotions around that. I'm getting my palms are getting sweaty thinking about it, actually, because one of the biggest inspirations in my life is Alberta Billy, and she's someone that championed in that space. She went to Ottawa and said we need an apology. And it's because of her that work started happening publicly around offering those apologies. So yeah, Alberta Billy, absolutely a huge inspiration. She's a matriarch from my community.
Okay, a big one for members of the NDP. Do you remember where you were when Jack Layton died?
I don't remember the actual specific space when he died. I do remember like the wide like news coverage of everything, and I remember I feel the heaviness of that all across the country still. Like Jack comes up a lot still. Like it's something that people have arguably have not recovered from. People are still devastated. They saw this opportunity in this person who's just an amazing, genuine human being, like just showed up as a dude, right? Showed up as a person, and that resonated with people. So losing your best friend, and your best friend that was about to change Canadian history, is just something that has been really, really hard to process. We would have done such great things for Canadians. So it's a layered form of grief that folks have for Jack.
Okay, I'm in Quebec City, as I said, and so I'm always curious. Where were you the night of the shooting at the mosque in Quebec City in 2017?
I was 2017. That's the year that I moved home. So that year was my transition year back to Camp River. I was living in Victoria, finishing school, but my grandmother was actually passing away. And I had promised myself I would never work for the Ministry of Children and Families. I viewed that as the darkest place imaginable as a frontline social worker. But I needed to move home to be with my grandpa so that he wasn't alone. And so that's the year that I moved home to go live at my grandpa's to make sure that he wasn't alone when my grandmother passed.
Okay. Different kind of event. Where were you for the final concert of the Tragically Hip that was aired on CBC across Canada and filmed in Kingston, Ontario?
I was at home attempting to like find any live stream of that possible because I didn't get to go, but I did get to see the Tragically Hip. My buddy Adam actually took me when they played at the Save on Foods Memorial Center in Victoria. So I was still am extremely grateful to have been exposed to that human being in living form.
Okay, not sure if you're a basketball fan, but where were you when the Raptors won the NBA final against Golden State?
Oh, I have no idea where I was. I like basketball when I'm surrounded by other people that like basketball. I can get behind most sports because I love the environment. I love how excited people get. I love, even if I don't know exactly what's going on in the sport, the the passion that is surrounds the sport with the people is so catching. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one. Where were you when you realized that we were in a pandemic?
Oh, that's a good one. I was in Campbell River. I don't know, remember where I was exactly specifically, but I remember having to transition work to home, and my daughter at the time was like 2. So it was life altering. I mean, for everybody, it was life altering, but especially for a parent of a tiny human that no longer had daycare. Something also that was very impactful with that little timeline was my daycare was the last one to reopen in the city and only reopened for half a day, which was useless for me as a full-time working parent. And so I actually ended up working for almost a whole year with my tiny human attached to my side, traveling all over the island for the job that I had. It was unreal. It was unreal, but also incredibly lucky to be able to spend that much time with her at that age. at home, because you don't get to usually, right? Usually, if you are pursuing a career, your kiddo goes into daycare at like age 1 or 2, and then a big part of their life is in that daycare with those amazing educators that are raising our tiny humans all across the country. So both a blessing and a very challenging time.
Yes. Well, Tanille, it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and I really wish you the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to see you. I was so excited when I saw you and Sandy at a podcast. I was like, no way. I was like, this is cool. Yeah. So stay in it, please. Cause like I love seeing everybody like in this political world. It also just proves my point that like the student movement's where it's at. Like we can do this. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, and for folks sacrificing their internet on your end as well to make sure we had a connection.